the future. There are no people. There are no people in the future. No people at all. There are no people in the future. Where did all my people go? There are no people in the future. Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away now.
Hey, everybody, welcome. Yes, it is Friday the 13th. May the 13th, 2022. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coup podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. And each week we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. Yes, I know we're getting started a little bit early for those folks who are joining our stream. We're going to have a little bit of an abbreviated show today. I'll talk about that in a second, but here we go. You can help support this show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Just head on over to patreon.com/rcpress for all the details. You can choose your membership level. It doesn't have to be $5 a month. It could be about 10, it could be 20. Sure, jump in there. Be a class warrior. Come on in. Head on over to patreon.com/rcpress and become a patron today. You can also help out the show by heading over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for the show. Hit that notification bell so you know every time we go live. We are approaching 200 subscribers. Yes, I know it's a pittance compared to the video game streamers out there or the right-wing kind of streamers out there. I get it. But it's one of our goals. We're at 196. You encourage folks to subscribe to the show. That'd be fantastic. Let's get over that hump. Get 200 subscriptions ASAP. And if you listen to us on a podcast, you listen on Spotify, you listen on Apple Podcasts, make sure you give us that 5-star review and leave us a review. It helps other people find the show. On this week's show, like I said, we're going to have a little bit of an abbreviated show today. I've got some things that I'm going to be doing. My wife and I are going to do this afternoon. So we've got a little bit of a crunch time this morning. I almost didn't do the show, but I was like, but there's so much going on here too that I just wanted to at least come on and touch base because it's just been yet another week. On top of that, it is the end of my semester. The grades are due next Tuesday, which is also primary day, of course. So I had to bust my butt this week to make sure that I had everything done ahead of time. I've got all my grades done. I'm so excited. But I've got some stragglers that are still coming in. I've got to submit everything on Monday. So it's been the end of the semester stuff too as well. But just a lot going on. So more on that today's show. So look, for more PA progressive talk, not just PA progressive talk, it's national working people talk. That's what we got to start calling that. Like, tune in to the Rick Smith Show's live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern on his YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you get your streams. Subscribe to his podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And head on over to thericksmithshow.com for the latest across all his platforms. And you got to check out the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast if you have not already, especially in the wake of the news around Roe. These women, these kind of amazing PA women stirring the political cauldron behind the podcast, man, they rock the house, and they're going to be all that much more necessary going forward. Make sure that you find them on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow them on Twitter at The Night Caucus. That's at The Night Caucus on Twitter. And for all you gamers out there, the Game In, that's with 2 N's, the Game In is a Quakertown-based black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show. They've got everything from retro N64s, the latest consoles, video games for all platforms, loads of collectibles, action figures, and Funko Pops. And look, kids get discounts with every A on the report card. Check them out on the Facebook page and follow them on Twitter at @TheGameIn. That's @TheGameIn on Twitter. If you got a question about a game, you look for something hard to get, you shoot them a message or drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. Shout out goes once again to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page, or follow him on Twitter at @SongADayMan, 2 N's, @SongADayMan on Twitter. And if you haven't checked it out already, please do. Don't let Paul Martino and other billionaires right here in Bucks County, don't let them buy our schools. Don't let them infect our communities with their toxicity. Help us end the domination of right-wing money by tipping the scales to the extreme on our school boards and in our communities. We've partnered with Level Field to set up a grassroots PAC to support organizing and progressive candidates that our children and our communities deserve. right? So instead of having to kind of go through the kind of Democratic consultant machine that doesn't know what is going on here, gave very bad advice to candidates in the past, we want to make sure that we're going to be supporting the people who are actually doing the organizing and the candidates that we need to win. Help us out. That's ragingchicken.levelfield.net. That's ragingchicken.levelfield.net. Little show notes on Out to Coop Live this coming Monday, the 16th. We will have our show, but it is primary eve. So I'm not having a guest on. I'm going to be working the polls all day, from bright and early all the way to close on Tuesday. And I'm a little anxious about it. It's the first time I've actually kind of been, working the part of I've been on the outside, kind of helping candidates and school board candidates, but this is on the inside, helping, make sure everything runs smoothly. So just kind of, regular anxieties that come up about doing something new. So want to make sure that I get plenty of sleep and I'm prepared for the day on Tuesday, on primary day. But we will have a show. It will be an open show. So questions, concerns, things you're following on. I want to hear what's happening in your district. I want to hear what's happening, what you're got your eyes on. I want to hear what who you're going to be out there campaigning for, who you're going to be at the polls talking to people about. Will you be lobbying around kind of a school board reform of the Penridge School District? Are you supporting particular candidates that are out there? Are you supporting Fetterman? Are you supporting Malcolm? Are you, what's going out there? I'd love to hear what's happening at the polls, or what you're thinking about on that primary eve. So tune in on Monday, and it's going to be a listener hour or two. And then the following Monday, on Monday the 23rd, I'm going to have Sarah Aniano. Sarah Aniano. She is a researcher. She has recently graduated from Monmouth University with a master's degree in communication. Her work on social media misinformation and the rhetoric of the far right has garnered nationwide media attention, and she aims to use her expertise in the future to clean up the information ecosystem online. She was just featured in a CNET article about the kind of, the people behind the scenes of exposing all this stuff on kind of right-wing extremism. She was one of 4, I think, individuals, all women, I believe, who have been working to track down the spread of misinformation from these right-wing extremists and expose it for what it is. Her work is phenomenal. She did incredible work down there with the kind of Freedom Truckers Convoy, whatever the heck that thing was. And she was one of the people that ended up being quoted in the Washington Post, New York Times, all these other major publications, because she was the one who knew what was happening and knew the background and had the research. So we're going to have her on this show to see where things are. That is Monday the 23rd at 7 p.m. Look, if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. Support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a patron of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress. Look, we got rid of Trump, and now the hard work of building progressive future begins. We're here for the fight, but we need you. Become a patron for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement and movement in the media. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month. Simply go into patreon.com/rcpress today. Well, listen, I want to start off just a little bit differently today before we get into some key stories that are going on out there in the world. I mean, there's like an endless supply, it seems, right now. I just want to kind of share my screen with you to talk a little bit about, to show you a little bit about the pack that I just had talked to you a little bit about it. We're going to have a launch event that's going to be coming up soon that will have probably going to be a Zoom link for folks that want to come in, want to talk about it, have some ideas and this kind of thing. But I'll just give you a quick intro to this. So this is the page. You can see it's ragingchicken.levelfield.net. This, you can write it here. You can go in, you click on your donate, gives you your basic information that it's going to ask you to put in here. And you can go ahead and you can kind of give a donation. It's pretty painless for $5, $10, 25 or more. You want to put more, you can put it in there. I will tell you, this is a pretty kind of awesome day because we have just about raised just about $1,000 already in this little campaign to help put money back into our schools. behind school board candidates that are going to kind of support sanity in our schools, to take it away from the kind of extremists, and to support community organizing that is happening in our communities. And now more than ever, we see just this past week what's happened in Central Bucks, right? We see that students are rising up, right, and kind of pushing back against these restrictions of being able to talk about sexuality, of being able to kind of support LGBTQ rights, to support trans rights. We saw yesterday students walked out, a principal threatened them that she was going to call the police on them if they had pictures inside the school. They're having their pride flags the teachers are being told to take their pride flags down. They're not allowed to talk about sexuality in the classrooms. And the organizing that is happening on the ground by parents, by community members, by students, right, needs to be supported. And we need to be able to way to fund this kind of infrastructure, in addition to make sure that we are targeting resources towards progressive candidates for school board, for state representative, for state senate, and yes, the kind of national elections, but this is going to be much more focused on what's happening in Bucks County and Pennsylvania, particularly around the questions of schools, but also against the pushback against the right-wing extremism. So if you can help support us, you can go right here. You can go to ragingchicken.levelfield.net. If you want information about this, you let other people know about it. That's the best thing that you can do. If you've already given, I know a bunch of people have already given as support for this PAC. What I intend to do in the kind of, over this course of the summer, like I mentioned already, we're going to have a kind of a little bit of a launch event. So make sure you're signed up for our newsletter, or that you're a patron. I'll send out information about that. I have a kind of open event, talk a little bit about kind of why this is kind of necessary. And then the way I envision it is that periodically we're going to have those kind of events, so that people who are contributing, so that people are in the community that are organizing, we keep this PAC focused on what is happening in the communities with community input, right? So this is kind of the anti-Paul Martino PAC, right? I mean, not just anti-Paul Martino. What I mean is, like, it is like on the other side of that kind of PAC, where you have one person with tons of money that's influencing elections. This is the idea about giving us the tools and some mechanisms to not to have to rely upon Democratic Party consultants, especially when we're talking about school board elections or things that are happening in our community, but rather that we can kind of build out a kind of a messaging kind of infrastructure and organizational infrastructure to support our own organizing, right? And look, and if you've got friends, if you've got people that you know that are outside our area, but that have their eyes on what's going on, because, like, look, frankly, Bucks County has become a national story right now. You know, people that are outside of this, they can contribute to this as well, with the understanding, as long as they understand that the money is staying here and that we're investing in organizing and progressive candidates here in Bucks County. You want details on it? This gives you a little bit of overview about what this is about, why we got this started. This gives you some facts about what happens to the money. It breaks down exactly what we're going to be doing, right, with that money here. It shows you who spends the funds. The funds go in this level field of Pennsylvania. It's a contributing PAC, gives you the filer information right there. I have control, and the people that are working with me at Raging Chicken have control about how those funds are going to be spent, which is why we need the community kind of connected to this and involved. It gives you, do you credit card information? We store it? No. Why do you collect information? This is under Pennsylvania law. Right, so that things are going to be filed. This is where Levelfield has really been a fantastic partner thus far in getting this off the ground, because that's a lot of the burden right there, is setting up this information, or kind of setting up this infrastructure and dealing with all the kind of the paperwork and the background stuff. This allows us who are affiliated with this, who are working on this, to be focused on where the money goes, supporting important organizing efforts, supporting important candidates, right? And Levelfield are the ones that kind of do all that kind of stuff in the background for me. So it's it's much appreciated. And so you can check that out. Again, it's ragingchicken.levelfield.net. And if you can contribute $5, $10, $25, $50 towards this PAC, that would be fantastic, because it's in my mind, we've got a couple projects already. I've already a couple people have been in touch with me about some ideas that they have. I'll kind of not talk about those quite yet, but great, keep those ideas coming. But I'm also looking for ways to reach out to how do we support these kids that are organizing, say, for example, in Rise Up Central Bucks or Rise Up Penridge, that are actually looking to make sure that trans kids are not kind of bullied and intimidated in our schools, that we have school boards that kind of are welcoming to everybody, not just the people that they like. And it's really kind of disgusting that they've got these signs up on their lawns now. It says, we're love lives here, but it's love for only the people that they want to love. You have to meet their criteria. You have to meet their litmus test as a human being, really, right? As a correct kind of human being that is deserving of love, and then they'll love you. Right. So let's be clear. We need to basically take this back. And in the wake of what has just happened in terms of the leaked document of Roe v. Wade, that there has to be a clear line in the sand that if you want to be running for office in this county, right, then you have 100%. No holds barred. You have to stand with women, which means that you have to support the right to abortion, right? And we will use those words, right? Not kind of couch it like we need to kind of support the medical choices that women. No, they need to be clear about their support for the right to abortion, right? So this is kind of we need to start drawing these kind of clear lines and pushing back against this. So I just wanted to share that all with you. I've talked about this on the show a little bit. Over the past several weeks, but I haven't really gone into much detail because I wanted to make sure that it was kind of up and running and it was clear before how it worked before I kind of really started pushing it out, but we're gonna have more of that. And then plus it was the end of my semester, so frankly, it was a lot of stuff that was going on. Good morning, Amy. Sorry I didn't say good morning earlier. Oh, boy. So what do we got going on today? So there's a few things that I wanted to highlight on today's show. And like I said, I'll do a little bit of an abbreviated show because my wife and I got some things we're doing this afternoon. And I've just got to make sure that all my little grading details is buttoned up. So I'm a little bit of abbreviated context today, but we'll hear. So one of the things that I thought this was good. Let me say this at the top of the show too as well. I know I'm a little bit all over the place. I'm a little sorry. It's one of those days. I want to make sure that I say this towards the top of the show too as well, is that if you are in Bucks County, Sunday, May 15th from 11 a.m. to 12:30, there's going to be a rally for abortion justice in Doylestown. The information on that, check out, there's an announcement of it in the Bucks County Beacon. You can find information about that stuff online. We will post a link to this in today's show notes. As a matter of fact, I'll put the, what just happened to my, oh God. Of course, I just had my, I just had it up, and then what happens? I'll put a link to today's show notes. Oh, here it is. I just had the wrong one. Here you go. I'm throwing this in today's chat. So if you want the link directly to the article with the information on this, Rise Up, you can contact riseupdoylestown@gmail.com for more information. The speakers will include Josh Shapiro, attorney Kitty Colbert, local activists and student leaders. They will be out there, and it's be great if we can show up and show support. As they say, bring your family, signs, stories, hearts, commitment to protect abortion access. So this is an opportunity to organize too as well. So I hope you'll be there. We're going to do our best to be there. There's some other ones too as well. I know that tomorrow, which is Saturday, there are lots of events that are going on up in Bethlehem. There's a march that's going on, also a rally for abortion justice. But this one on Bucks County, Doylestown, is at 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Sunday at the old Bucks County Courthouse. That is 55 East Court Street in Doylestown. Again, information on that, I just dropped the link in chat. You can check it out. Okay, so let's talk about a few things for here. There is one item that I thought was pretty interesting that I wanted to highlight. Let me go over here. So I don't know if people saw this yet. It is out on Twitter. Came out kind of a couple hours ago. This is from the Philadelphia Enquirer, and I want to just take a minute to read a little bit from their editorial. This is the kind of the op-ed. This is the editorial board of the Philadelphia Enquirer. And I'll just read a little bit about this because I think this is the kind of approach that I'd like to see more newspapers take. And it's about time we got some clarity on here. Even again, this is an editorial board of a newspaper, so you're not going to expect this to be an organizing document for for progressives, but still, this is significant. So we wanted to, this is the title of it, we wanted to endorse in Republican primaries this year. We can't. With abortion rights at stake and right-leaning candidates who can't agree on who won the 2020 election, the Enquirer editorial board has chosen not to endorse a Republican for Senate or for governor. This is significant. So here's a little bit about how they talk about this. This is from the editorial board. With Pennsylvania voters headed to the polls on Tuesday to choose the Republican and Democratic candidates for governor and U.S. Senate, it's as if the primaries are occurring on two different planets. On the Republican side, there was a palpable shift, one that seems to have happened between the presidential election on November 3rd, 2020, and the insurrection in the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. It is no secret that this board for decades has leaned toward Democrats, and we have endorsed Republicans in past elections, including U.S. Representative Brian Fitzpatrick for another term in 2020 and Kevin Brobson in the primary for the state Senate Supreme Court in 2021. This is key, right? So they're basically saying, look, this is not a surprise that we've leaned towards Democrats. However, we've endorsed people like Brian Fitzpatrick. This is so critical that the Enquirer is dropping the veil, right? And basically saying, look, Brian Fitzpatrick, they're not saying this directly, but Brian Fitzpatrick is in line with the Republican Party. So because he has not disavowed this stuff, because he's gone along with it, even though he's tried to keep on his veil of moderation, right? We cannot stand behind this and endorse this guy because of who the Republican Party is today. I mean, this is really important. Okay, back to the editorial. Even when a candidate's views didn't exactly align with positions taken by this board, we found points of agreement, sustained moments of mutual respect, and appreciation of the kind of apolitical qualifications that are objectively deserving of praise. Most fundamentally, we are all operating in the same reality. That can't be said in 2022. When we sent a survey to Republican candidates in the state Senate race to ascertain their position on a range of issues, we learned that nearly everyone in the field felt our questions were biased and unfair. In their view, among the most problematic queries that we asked was, who won the 2020 presidential election? That's a biased question, right? They objected to being asked who won the 2020 election. The only two options in the multiple choice format were Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Only one candidate, Jeff Bartos, agreed to acknowledge a reality. If one of these Republicans wins the general election, they will represent Pennsylvania at the next State of the Union address. We guarantee that it will not be Donald Trump who walks into the U.S. Capitol to deliver the speech. The 2020 election is over. A candidate won. He lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and his name is Joe Biden. How do you find points of agreement when you can't reach common ground on facts so basic that they could be used in a field sobriety test? We also reached out to each of the candidates in the Republican primary for governor. 3 candidates who made it onto the ballot, Melissa Hart, Nietzsche Zama, and Charlie Gero, responded to our survey and acknowledged that Biden is president. In the current iteration of the Republican Party, that takes courage. And we are proud of for it. I mean, it takes courage. Really? Anyways, but then we read the leaked draft opinion of the Supreme Court that would completely overturn Roe v. Wade. The next governor of Pennsylvania is likely to be the one to decide whether to sign or veto a ban on abortion. This is critical. This board has endorsed Roe from the day it was decided in 1973. None of the Republican candidates for governor supports abortion rights, and all of them say that they would implement statewide restrictions, some more rigid than others. For example, the leading candidate in the polls, State Senator Doug Mastriano, is the prime co-sponsor of the fetal heartbeat ban, which would make abortion illegal beginning at about 6 weeks of gestation. When this board asked Zama if he'd sign such a bill, he said no, not because he doesn't support a ban, but because he felt doing so would incorrectly imply that he supports abortion before 6 weeks of pregnancy. In other words, no, zero. Given the Supreme Court's apparent plans, the members of the board asked each other if we could bring ourselves to support a candidate who, if given the opportunity, was all but certain to use their pen as governor to ban abortion once the protections of Roe were no longer in place. We could not. There is no pleasure in coming to this conclusion. In fact, it is a sad state of affairs. There is no inherent virtue in supporting the policies that this board supports, but that's not the point. The question isn't how can more people agree with us, but how can this nation come to a place where we reach different conclusions and hold different opinions while operating from the same commonly shared set of facts? We don't have an answer. Here's what we do know. It is through discussion, debate, and the interrogation of ideas that we develop a shared story. We hold on to the words of Thomas Jefferson, one of the nation's flawed but fundamental founders, that, quote, truth is great and will prevail, unquote, unless, quote, disarmed of her natural weapons, free argument and debate, unquote. And that is why we wanted to speak with all of the candidates in the primary. That is why we'll invite Republican nominees in both races to endorsement meetings in the fall. And that is why we wanted to help provide guidance to Enquirer readers with an endorsement in the Republican primaries this year, but we couldn't. Nevertheless, we will not stop engaging in free argument and debate as the truth prevails, blah, blah, blah. That's pretty substantial. I mean, look, it is. Does it go far enough? Does it go, talk about where the problem is and all that? No. Right, but that is pretty significant, and I do applaud them for that. What else we got? So there's that. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that there was this little, I'll tell you about a little rabbit hole I went down the other day. It started with a tweet from online. And so there is this, there's a woman, she's a Republican, supporter of Doug Mastriano, and supporter of former GOP congressional candidate Dasha Pruitt. And her name is Liz Deal. And the reason I feel comfortable talking about her kind of in here is because she's already been, she's been featured in the press, right, in particular Bucks County Beacon and some other places, because she was connected to or had a, say, role in the forged signatures on Dasha Pruitt's nomination form. Okay. Now, let me be clear. This is not to say that Deal was the one who was responsible for forging things. I'm not suggesting that. But, listen to this. I'll read you this is what in a statement that Deal said to her lawyer approved for release. She said, I have spent countless hours of my own time collecting legitimate signatures for Dasha Pruitt in Congress. It appears as though these petitions were subsequently altered with false signatures. The signatures were not my doing, and they suspiciously all have the same handwriting. Right? Now, Deal was well known in far-right Republican political circles. This is from the article again. Quote, in addition to being an outspoken opponent of DEI in Pembroke School District, she is a reopened Bucks member and an ardent Doug Mastriano supporter, the so-called Christian nationalist GOP candidate. Okay. And she is also the judge of elections in Sellersville. All right. And the reason why her name is, as Pruitt's, there's questions about what was the appropriate oversight and all this other kinds of stuff that's in here. But the reason why that came up, why she came up again, is because somebody posted this online where she was basically posting pictures of herself. I guess it looks like it's a screenshot from her Facebook page where she's posting Doug Mastriano pictures on the kind of overpasses above 476, right? And it's not a question. She says this directly on her Facebook page. Says, filling Bucks County up with Doug signs. Today, my best friend Michelle and I hung 2 huge Doug Mastriano for governor signs up on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. People were honking in support of Doug right away. It was so much fun and encouraging. I feel a win for Mastriano coming, don't you? Right? And the problem with that, of course, is it's illegal to do that. Right? But there she is, kind of posting. She's got pictures of herself, except like putting the sign up, right? And then pictures of it above the overpass. And, so I basically, I saw this, I kind of reposted this and with some context where it shows you whether this is illegal. And, you just think that if you're coming up on any way close, if you're a judge of elections, that you're walking into a primary on Tuesday, where you're supposed to be kind of objective and make sure things that are kind of going as they're going, that you're going to follow the rules at least. Right. And here we've got her somehow affiliated with, these signatures, right? Looks like she was supposed to say cross off, to put an X through the bottom where the signature things ended, and she didn't do that. So wherever they went after that, somebody filled them in, right? That's at least the story that is coming out. It was reported in the Bucks County Beacon. Okay, so there's that. So then this is somebody kind of tipped me off there about what kind of one of the groups that that Liz Deal is connected to. And this took me in another direction. Now, this is not so much about Liz Deal as it is about a new organization that we need to be paying attention to. Okay, there is an organization that started out in 2021, so 2021, and it's called the Shield of Truth Network. All right, and if you can go on my Twitter account at RC Press, that's at RC Press on Twitter. You can kind of see it. Took some screenshots of what they're doing over there, but basically what the Shield of Truth Network is they are without saying it directly, they're basically a Christian nationalist organization with a overtly political goal. They have on their main webpage, they say, look, here we have these committees that you can join to help influence these through these kind of Christian things. One, school board committees. They have a committee that targeting school boards, a homeschooling committee to make sure the committee that is kind of, how do you do this? A state legislative committee, right, that makes sure it's responsible for being aware of current and future bills and legislation and informing STN members what's going on. A Second Amendment committee, because of course, if you love God, you got to love guns, right? So weird. And then a spiritual warrior committee. Right, an important core to this organization, our dedicated prayer warriors and spiritual committee members are here to guide our group, provide support, and ways to enhance your faith. Okay, so I'm like, well, this is interesting. So I read a bunch about them for a bit, and then sure enough, there was an event held not too long ago, like a couple weeks back, I guess. And who is their number one candidate? As you would expect, it's Doug Mastriano. And Doug Mastriano gave a speech at this that was frightening, right? Unless, of course, you're really charged up for the future theocracy, because that's what it was. So I'd recommend people check it out, become familiar with who these people are. Shield of Truth Network, right? They are yet another right-wing organization that is having influence. This time it's from the far Christian nationalist right. Right, so we've got people like Doug Mastriano. I'm sorry, not Doug Mastriano. We got people like Paul Martino, right? We've got people like, Reopen Bucks people. We've got the Moms of Liberty people. We've got who am I forgetting? Oh, we've got the what do you call it? The Newtown Athletic Club like faction of there. We've got, we could go on and on, right? So basically why this is important, right, is like, they had these events, they're having these events all over the state, but in Bucks County too as well. This adds another dimension. And of course they just started in 2021, right, in the ramp up to those school board elections, right? We have said on this show over and over again, right, we are trying to get, like, say, for example, Democrats to understand, and they clearly did not ahead of the school board elections, that what we're seeing here is right-wing. This is their testing ground. Bucks County is their testing ground for strategy, for electoral strategy, for additional power. Now, again, this whole idea that we have a Republican Party that can, a Republican Party who can be reasoned with, forget about it, because the foot soldiers are here. Okay, we also just saw, right, in another line of disturbing events, right, we see now at the gubernatorial race, right, where Doug Mastriano has been clearly out in front for a long time, right? Who is the Christian nationalist, right? And now we see on the Republican side in the state Senate, where you've got, Mehmet Oz, who had Trump's endorsement, right, seem to be taking things away. And these other Republican candidates that are supposed to be the good Republicans who still believe in kind of anti-abortion, who still are kind of, forced birthers, who are still, looking to kind of strip our unions of any power, destroy our public schools, right? But they're just not as extreme, or they don't talk as extreme as people like Mehmet Oz and so on, right? They don't deny the election as hard as Oz does, right? But then out of nowhere, quote unquote, right? And if you remember, about a year ago, we talked about her. We have Kathy Barnett, right? Kathy Barnett has also been endorsed by Doug Mastriano, and now she's basically, a recent poll just came out, and she's head-to-head in the polls with Oz, right? And they are leading the pack. And she, right? And she's kind of upsetting some people in MAGA world, right? In Trump world, because she's an ultra MAGA, right? She's like, got to step to the right. Step to the left? No. 3 steps to the right, right? It's like, it's pretty crazy. So there's a lot going on. Let me just put it like that. There's a lot going on in those races, and there's a lot at stake. So these organizations, like the Shield of, what did I call it again? I can't even keep my head around these people half the time. We're talking about the Shield of Truth Network is another part of this right-wing apparatus, right? It is aligned largely around policy, although, these people don't necessarily like each other all that much. But it's just talking about the degree of which kind of shade of right-wing fanaticism you want to support. Whether it's the kind of like libertarian, kind of like leave everything up to the market and let people die who can't make it on their own people. Whether it's like, if you can't afford to go to school, then public shouldn't pay for it. I get to keep all mine. You don't get to touch my money. Let the chips fall where they may. People don't deserve health insurance if they can't afford it. There's those people. We got the Christian nationalists. So there's lots of stuff happening here in Bucks County, which is why we need so much attention on this race, on these races. And then it comes down to the point of what's happening in our schools. Right? So we've got the big races coming up here. But then we happen with our school. And again, once again, Central Bucks is in the news. Right? Because they're basically saying to their teachers, they are not allowed to talk about anything related to sexuality in the classroom. And so at one of the schools, as the Lenape Middle School, I guess it is, Lenape Middle School basically ordered teachers who were displaying the pride flag in their classrooms to have them to remove them from their classrooms because they were political. Now look, standing up for human rights is not a Democrat-Republican partisan issue on its face. Right? There is no reason why, and there was a time not too long ago where there were a few Republicans, even some conservative ones, right, who basically stood up and they basically said, you know what, I found out that my kid, was gay, because of course that's the only way that they can deal with it is if it actually affects them personally. But well, my kid was gay, and then, people should have the right for same-sex marriage or something like this. They could actually kind of get behind some of these things, and they could be supportive of this stuff and supportive of gay and lesbian and kind of and bisexual folks. Thus far, transgender seems to be a little step too far for those folks, but still, right? So there's no reason why you can't be a Republican, right? Why you can't be kind of like a devout kind of Christian and still see the humanity in supporting people. Right? Now, we might disagree, right, over how we support those folks, right? They might just want to pray for them, for God to save them or something like this, but they can still be kind and generous, want support, right? And the pride flag is that you are there to support LGBTQ students, right? Or people in general, right? It's a statement about humanity. It is not a democratic statement, right? The only reason why this has even come close to being this partisan Democratic Republican issue is because the Republican Party has left the playing field. They have left the playing field of human rights. They have left the playing field of respecting people. They have left the playing field of supporting anything that's for our public good. That's why. So for this principal to basically then head in and basically you have to strip all this, you cannot refer to all the, and she basically told all the teachers that when you refer to them, if these students are graduating in a celebration, right, you have to refer to them by their official name that is written on the official register, even if it is not the name that they choose to be called, and even if it's not the pronouns that they choose to be called by. I basically say, look, if they want to be called by, called by their kind of transgender name, then they're going to have their parents come into school, sign up these forms so that it will be officially changed. So when they graduate or they leave or whatever you call it, promoted to the next level, they can be referred to by their chosen name. So students are walking out. Students have had enough. Students have organized and have been holding these walkouts. And then they come back to school, like they walk out, they come back to school. And this is happening everywhere. This is happening in the Penridge school district. This is happening, obviously, Central Bucks. This is happening, I'm sure, in Palisades. I'm sure in North Penn, although we had Jonathan Casa on this past Monday. And gives us a kind of different perspective of what happens when you actually organize to win and you flip a school board. You still have got the extremists still show up at the school board meetings. They still show up and try to do all the kind of craziness and all the nonsense that is happening in our school boards here in Upper Bucks. But they don't have the reins of power like they do here in Upper Bucks. So if you haven't checked out that last Monday show with Jonathan Casa, please do. It was also good for another reason, is that Jonathan Casa, man, I'll tell you, he can bring out the trolls. It's like, seriously, within like 3 minutes of the show getting started, the trolls like jumped on the conversation. It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. But that just shows you, right? That's what happens when that's like another kind of like, another element in their legions, right? These freaking trolls that just go out and just go after people, say the most horrible things about people just to try to get your goat, So there you have it. So we got, kind of the soup to nuts here, right? We're having these kind of midterm elections where we're kind of focused on, say, the gubernatorial election, on the Senate election necessarily. We do not have, right? We just had our school board elections last year, so we don't have them in the fall, but they are as critical, right? At the state legislative level, right? We're going to be electing candidates that are going to Pennsylvania state legislature. And look, I know like people are really think that Josh Shapiro has got it locked up for governor as a Democrat, right? I am not as convinced as they are that Josh Shapiro has it locked up. And again, look, there's all sorts of things you can say about, how much do yard signs measure kind of like support for a candidate. I was thinking about this morning because I'm walking around my neighborhood. I walk my dog, right? I drive to work and I go through here. And the signs that I see are for Doug Mastriano, Kathy Barnett, I see some Fetterman signs. I have to say, I see some Fetterman signs, just a couple. But most of them are for Mastriano. And if they're not from there, they're from the kind of like the rebranded like Democratic Party, or I'm sorry, Republican Party, which says like love lives here, God, guns and country, or whatever the heck it is, right? It's nuts, right? It's actually was funny because I have like a neighbor who was basically out there with all these political signs, Mastriano, Pruitt, Barnett, right? All this kind of early, right out of the gate, right? Boom, boom, boom. And they disappeared. And down the street, there's this like kind of big like horse farmy looking place, and they always put up these 8 by 10 sheets of plywood, right? That's where you get some of the kind of power brokers in the Republican Party, Bucks County Republican Party or Penridge Republican Party, right here. And they usually have these nasty anti-immigrant stuff and all this stuff, but they're getting smarter about it. Because why? Because now they have love lives here, right? So they're just trying to kind of dress it up, man. They're just trying to dress it up. And my neighbor across the street, or down the street, right? They took down those signs, and now they have the love lives here one here. So you could see what they're doing, right? I will not be surprised if I out in the primary, if I don't see people who are handing out campaign literature with "Love Lives Here" shirts on. We'll see. We'll see. Because you technically you can't bring in. And I even think about this, right? Going into to vote. Technically you're not supposed to wear political, or you're not supposed to campaign inside your polling place. Right? There's some squishy stuff when it comes to a shirt on. Like if you're not actively campaigning, you got a shirt on, you come into here, that's been deemed it's okay. But you can go and see "Love Lives Here." Everybody knows. Everybody knows what that means, right? More dog whistling, right? That's the entire kind of political agenda that's going on now on the right here. Or I would say that the political messaging that is happening, right? Publicly. That's not what's happening in their meetings. So we're in for it. So yes, Josh Shapiro is looking like a good candidate and all this kind of stuff. But you've heard me talk about it on the show. Even when Sean was still on the show, Sean and I would say that, look, Josh Shapiro is not the kind of guy that, gets us all kind of psyched up as, say, a progressives, right? But, there was a period there which he was basically showing, we starting to get this little national stature, especially when it came to the insurrection and kind of what was happening with Trump, that he looked like he was at least going to be willing to be a fighter, a partisan fighter, right? But, if you look at his social media game right now, if you look at the kind of messaging that he's putting out there now, he's basically signaling that it's just basically following the kind of, Democratic consultant class playbook. Now we'll see. He's going to be speaking in Doylestown on Sunday, right? We're going to see if he's going to come out with full-throated endorsement for abortion rights, if that he's going to call Republicans out for themselves, is he's not going to rely upon this nonsense that we just need a few good Republicans back. Did you see that? Did you see this? Nancy Pelosi once again coming out basically saying, we need a strong Republican Party again. I say, hey, I got news for you, Pelosi. I've got news. There is already a strong Republican Party. The Republicans are cleaning your clock. They've got an agenda. I mean, does she not realize that they just overturned Roe because they strategized for 50 years? And then the last kind of decade and a half, they went full throttle into packing judges and doing this. They've achieved their goal. That's a strong Republican Party. The only thing that she doesn't understand is that she's still got this myth in her brain that Republicans are something else. This is their agenda. This is not because of Trump. We've said this before. This is Trump put the suit on that the Republican Party built. That's it. And yeah, sure that, some of them clutch their pearls and everything like that, but this is their agenda. The huge kind of wealth inequalities, that's their agenda. Huge tax cuts to the billionaires in the top 1%, that's their agenda. The overturning of Roe v. Wade, that is their agenda and has been since Ronald Reagan, 1980. This is the Republican Party, Nancy Pelosi. And then meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi and Democratic Party leadership in the House are down there in Texas campaigning for Cuellar, who's the lone anti-abortion Democrat. And he's being challenged by Jessica Cisneros, right? Also Latina. But she is a progressive. She is pro-abortion rights for women. And Pelosi and Democratic Party leadership have been campaigning and raising money for the anti-abortion candidate in that race. Why? Because Nancy Pelosi, I'm just projecting, this is what people have been saying, she's protecting the people that have supported her. It's just about maintaining power, which is insane to me right now. This is the one reason I was happy to see that editorial from the Philadelphia Enquirer this morning. I was extremely happy to see that because it basically, at least, it's a little chip in this kind of like nonsense that there's some good Republicans out there. Like, guess what? Representative Brian Fitzpatrick in Bucks County, one of the most watched, they keep on saying, well, it's going to be one of the most watched races. He is anti-abortion. He's anti-abortion. Will he vote to codify Roe? Will he vote for legislation that will basically ensure a woman's right to an abortion? No. Therefore, in this context, maybe in some other fanciful context on some other planet that I'm not familiar with, that might mean that, well, okay, he's going to... No. In this context, he votes with the Republicans. He votes to support and give a kind of dressed up mantle to the most extremist politics in this country. You cannot allow that to happen. We cannot allow that to happen. Boy. Just looking through what else things I had down here that I wanted to talk about, but I might just get ready to cut that off. Oh, of course, I just got to mention this. The other news this week, right, on kind of the Brian Fitzpatrick front was people saw this, and this is going to have some interesting implications. Is that there was this basically his guy, his name is Billy Lanzillotti, I guess his last name is. He was a GOP ward leader of the 39th ward in Philadelphia, and he diverted dozens of mail ballots of GOP voters to a PO box that were registered to his political action committee. Right. And he's trying to claim that basically what happened, I let everybody know they were just going to make it easier for everybody. Well, first we should say this. You remember, the Republicans made a huge stink about ballot harvesting, right? Making sure that that's not allowed. You cannot, and like all the drop boxes, the ballot, right? You cannot kind of drop somebody else's thing out for them unless you have all this kind of special permission and all this stuff. You can't basically say to the rest of your family and friends like, hey, listen, I'm going to the drop box. You want me to take yours with you? No, that is not allowed. Only you have to do it one. And what happens here? Well, you've got this, this guy, GOP ward leader, who's basically getting people to sign up for the mail-in ballots, but instead of having those mail ballots going to them back at home, right, they came to him. And he claims that, that he was going to then deliver it to them. That's not allowed, right? I hope this guy gets prosecuted. But the key thing is here, for, again, the connection right here to what's happening here in Bucks County, right, is I'll just read it right here. This is from the Philadelphia Enquirer article. So this guy, Lanzillotti, he had worked for President Donald Trump's re-election campaign in Pennsylvania in 2020. And according to campaign's finance filings, he had also been paid more than $7,000 by the re-election campaign for U.S. Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, right here in Bucks, between January and March of this year. Not back in 2020, this year. And that was a job, right, that Lanzillotti touted in an interview with the Enquirer last week. This is from reading from there. And the Enquirer contacted Friday to discuss Lanzillotti's role in the South Philadelphia ballot issue. Fitzpatrick staffers described him as a paid intern who is no longer affiliated with the campaign. That's going to be really interesting. Just yet another thing. So what was that about? Right? Right across the board. It's crazy. It's crazy. Anyways, I'm looking at the time and realizing I'm going to have to go soon, but there's a lot going on. I will give a shout out once again to these students at out in Kutztown, not at the university, but um, they're in the town of Kutztown, at the high school there, or junior high. And if you remember, we reported on this when if they first came out there. There's the teen band book clubs. They meet like on a biweekly basis at the Firefly Bookstore in Kutztown. And the Firefly Bookstore, by the way, if you're ever in Kutztown, definitely check them out. They're fantastic. It's a great bookshop. They've done, it's just so awesome to have them in the community there. When these books started getting banned, and you had people on the school boards in Kutztown basically start wanting to kind of ban books, that these teens basically got going. And this in particular, she's 14 years old, Jocelyn Diffenbaugh. She said, I'll read you this. The point of this was they just made it in the Washington Post, right? This has been reported on locally, but now it's a story in the Washington Post. And it says, as book banning in schools reached unprecedented heights in the United States, 14-year-old Jocelyn Diffenbaugh was having none of it. Quote, it's really problematic because books are the only way you can be in another person's shoes, said Jocelyn, a self-proclaimed book nerd who lives in the small town of Kutztown near Allentown. She read several books that have been banned by school districts across the country, including The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas and All American Boys by Brendan Kiley and Jason Reynolds, both of which deal with police brutality. Quote, they were really eye-opening, said Jocelyn, an 8th grader at Kutztown Middle School. Quote, they are books that make you think. As attempts to forbid books increased both in Pennsylvania and another school district nationwide, Jocelyn felt she needed to do something. Like several other teens across the country, she started a banned book club where members read books that have been outlawed in schools, and they meet regularly to discuss them. It's just great. I mean, so huge shout out to the Teen Band Book Club and to Jocelyn Diffenbaugh and the other students who have got this going. This is pretty amazing, and I hope this is the kind of thing that we're going to start seeing happening in our communities here too as well. It's worth it. Reaching out to kind of local cafes, reaching out to local bookstores, looking out to local spaces where you can have these conversations, right? And be in public places, where we can actually have these discussions of people saying that we're not only are we reading them, but we're also not afraid. And we're also going to use those as organizing opportunities. So those kids are going to use those organizing opportunities to get other kids involved and other kids to kind of talking about what's important to them. So there it is. All right. All right, folks, I'm going to have to go today. Like I said, I'm going to have to cut things a little bit short. So thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And it's always great to be here. We got some cool stuff kind of coming up in a couple of weeks. I guess I can let everybody here know, but I don't want to start kind of promoting it too much yet, simply because I need to make sure that, hold on a second. Just make sure that my schedule works out. I think it's going to be fine. But so as I remember, we have Sarah Aniano will be on the show on the 23rd. This coming Monday, it's a pre-primary day, which we'll just kind of hear what's on your mind, right? So I'll be putting stuff out about that soon. And then on the 23rd, we'll have Sarah Aniano coming in and talk about kind of right-wing extremism and social media, how that's all working. And then on the 30th, right, assuming all works out, I'll have Kirsten Zolfel back on the show. And we're going to be digging into Brian Fitzpatrick. We're going to be talking about his anti-abortion stance. We're going to get into basically kind of tear off the mantle, basically say that, look, Fitzpatrick, sorry, Bucks County is no longer your playhouse. So you're gonna need to push aside. So we'll see what we have. Anyways, appreciate y'all for kind of tuning in and for checking me out today. I'm sorry I'm so rushed and disorganized. It's been one heck of a week. I wish you all the best this weekend. Hope to see folks out there at the Doylestown rally. That is at 11 a.m. at the old courthouse in Doylestown. That's 55 East Court Street, I believe. And for the abortion rally, the abortion rights rally, we'll make sure that we'll be there. Hope to see some of you out there. While you're there, here it is. I'm sorry, I was the abortion. So rally for abortion justice in Doylestown, Sunday, May 15th. Right, that's from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. As Amy says, do not be late. Speakers will include Josh Shapiro, attorney Kitty Colbert, local activists and student leaders. That is Sunday, May 15th, 11 to 12:30, the Old Bucks County Courthouse. That is 55 East Court Street in Doylestown. Hope to see you there. For the rest of you, we'll be kind of resting up for next week, and wish you all the best for the primaries. I know that a lot of you are kind of spending a lot of time out there knocking doors, supporting candidates, getting ready to work at the polls. We'll probably see some of you out at the polls too as well. I'm looking forward to it. In the meantime, everybody keep it up. Keep it up. We got a lot of work to do. All right. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. I'm about to have a weekend, I think. We shall see. All right. See you, everybody. Have a good weekend. See ya.
Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away.